Looking for a fun and delicious Valentine's, Galentines or date night option? A beer and chocolate tasting might be the answer. Hi, I'm Joanne the Beer School Lady, and I teach beer lovers how to taste with confidence and develop their knowledge of the world's favourite beverage. Often when we are thinking about pairing alcoholic beverages with food, we automatically go to wine. But beer is such a good option. There's a massive range of flavours and types to pair with any meal or food. For beer and chocolate, have you ever thought about that pairing before? Let's have a look at that today. Beer and chocolate showcase very similar flavours. Thinking about coffee, roastiness, bittersweetness. Beer and chocolate use a balance of bitterness and sweet to make delicious flavours. Another similarity is that they are generally better when they are made by craftspeople. So check out your local breweries and bottle shops, and don't forget to check out local chocolatiers. But how is chocolate made? Chocolate is made from cocoa beans. Originally, these were ground and the powder was used to make a drink. Then in 1826, a Dutchman called Van Houten developed the cocoa press. This separated the cocoa butter from the cocoa beans. In the 1840s, Fries in the UK discovered that if you mixed the cocoa butter with the cocoa powder, it stabilised and made chocolate. Finally, we got to milk chocolate when the Swiss started adding milk powder to their chocolate. Let's remember that white chocolate isn't technically chocolate. It hasn't got cocoa in it. It is, however, cocoa butter that has milk powder and sugar added to it. Chocolate purists will tell you it's not chocolate, but it's still delicious and goes really well with beer. So where do the similarities between chocolate and beer lie? Beer is made from an ingredient called malt. This is generally barley. This has been toasted and roasted to make different flavours, aromas and colours in the beer. Roasted malts can actually add chocolate aromas and flavours to beer. And as I said previously, chocolate and beer both balance bitterness and sweetness to make delicious flavours for us. Think about how hoppy beers often have a slight touch of sweetness just to balance themselves out. And even the darkest, roastiest stouts will still have a touch of hop bitterness to balance out their sweetness. By combining beer and chocolate flavours, we can come up with some really innovative and delicious pairings. Do you have a favourite type of chocolate? Let me know in the comments and I can help you pair it with a beer. But how do we pair beer with chocolate? There are some fundamental beer and food pairing techniques that we need to think about. You can simply match flavours. A chocolate flavoured beer is obviously going to go very well with multiple forms of chocolate, and a fruit beer would go very well with chocolate that has fruit notes or added fruit to it. You can also think about matching sweet with sweet and bitter with bitter. For example, a sweet fruit beer might go really well with a white chocolate that is much sweeter or a milk chocolate. Whereas when you have bitterness in your IPAs and pale ales, you may want to use more dark chocolate that has that bitter sweetness. Stout is a classic example to pair with chocolate. There are multiple different types. The sweeter milk stouts will go really well with milk chocolate, and darker roastiness might go with a darker bitter chocolate, perhaps with, again, fruit in there. It's also important to consider intensity. If you've got an intensely dark flavoured chocolate, you're going to want to pair that with an intense beer. A double IPA, for example, would go really well with a 70% dark chocolate that has a touch of salt or spice. So you're matching the intensities of the flavours. If you've got a lighter chocolate, pair it with a much lighter beer. Don't forget to also think outside the box. Why not just get several of your favourite beers, several of your favourite chocolates, and just try them together and see what combinations you can make. Everybody's taste buds are different and you are the expert of what you enjoy. So have some fun with it and put together some things that you find delicious. Let me share some possible beer and chocolate pairings that you could get very simply from your supermarket. I've picked these out from the supermarket, the chocolates and the beers, for accessibility so that you can just go get them straight away. However, I do highly recommend that you look at local bottle shops, local breweries and local chocolate makers to see if you can get something really interesting and to support those local businesses. Remember that independent craftspeople are going to be making some absolutely beautiful offerings for these beer and chocolate pairings. Our first pairing is a dark chocolate. This can go with an IPA, a stout, or a wit beer. This particular version here has sea salt. This intensity will bring out the intensity of an IPA. I think the bitter and hoppiness of this IPA could go really well with the bitterness of the dark chocolate, and that salt is going to add a little bit of interest to the sweetness of the malts in the IPA. Dark chocolate is an amazing option to have with stouts because there will be bitterness in the beer from roasted malts, but the intensity of dark chocolate, make sure you get one with high amounts of cocoa in there. You want your beer to be less bitter than your chocolate. So think about that when you're selecting your stout. A Belgian wit beer is also going to go really well with a dark chocolate. It's got a spiciness to it, and that the orange notes in the wit beer will go really well with the chocolate. Think about chocolate orange type combinations. A combination that I've discovered I really like from opening a chocolate box with a variety in and just trying it with some beers was dark chocolate and raspberry and a milk stout. The dark chocolate brings out the roasty notes of the beer, whereas the raspberry has a lovely sweetness that goes with the milk stout. I found this bar of Galaxy Fusions with meringue in it as well, so that sweetness is going to balance with the lactose sweetness of the milk stout. So I think this is a brilliant pairing. With chocolate with fruit in it, you can also pair it with another fruited beer, possibly a Kriek, which is with cherries. With a raspberry, you can be very matchy-matchy and have a framboise, which is a raspberry beer, or think about mixing up different berries that could go together, maybe a strawberry chocolate with different fruit beers. Play around with flavours to see what you enjoy. For a milk chocolate, you want a less intense beer. I found Coco Wonderland from Thornbridge, which is a chocolate porter, which is a match with your milk chocolate. A porter would go really well with a milk chocolate because it's going to have those chocolate notes in it. It's not as roasty or as necessarily as intense as a stout. It's going to be slightly lighter. Don't forget that the carbonation in beer is also going to go really well with your thick chocolate. It's going to wash that away from your mouth and want you to drink and eat more. Another excellent combination with a milk chocolate is a brown ale. That's going to have chocolate and caramel notes in it that will go really well with a milk chocolate. Additionally, a milk chocolate with nuts will go really well with a brown ale because it has those nutty notes from its malt base. Possibly also a fruit and nut bar will bring out the dried fruit characters of these beers. I'm a big fan of white chocolate, but of course this is very sweet, so you're going to have to think about what you balance with that sweetness. A hoppy beer, or here we have Duvel Triple Hop Citra, would go really well with the white chocolate. It's got lots of carbonation that's going to wash away the fats and the solids of the chocolate from your mouth and make you want to drink and eat some more. It has bitterness, which will balance the sweetness of the white chocolate. And also Citra is going to add some lovely citrus notes that's going to go really well with that vanilla creaminess that comes from white chocolate. White chocolate will also obviously go with fruited beers. Just think about tart fruit coulis. You want to go for something that's got a bit more tartness to it, more than lots of sweet, because we want to balance out the sweetness from the white chocolate. Finally, a wit beer with lots of citrus and coriander spice. The bitterness and the carbonation from this beer will go really well with the sweetness of the white chocolate. So you've picked your beers and your chocolates, you've made your pairing selection, but how are you going to go about doing a beer and chocolate pairing? Perhaps you want to do this as a Valentine's event, maybe you want to do it as a party with friends, maybe for Galentines, or you could do it as a date night. Here are my top tips for hosting a beer and chocolate tasting party. I would choose between 4 and 5 pairings. You only want to have about a third of beer per person and a few bits of chocolate. Then it can be quite a nice, relaxed evening where everyone tries together and you've still got time for social drinking afterwards. Remember, the selection that I've shown you is from the supermarkets. This is very accessible if this is the first time you're doing this sort of thing. However, do look at local producers. Perhaps speak to your favourite local brewery and see if they have any suggestions of chocolate that could pair with their beers. They may know a local chocolatier who can help you out. You could have a rigid selection and have already picked exactly which beers are going to go with which chocolates, or you could just put out a selection of beers and a selection of chocolates and let people choose their own and come up with some innovative and interesting flavour combinations. When you are tasting beer and chocolate, perhaps try the beer and try the chocolate separately. Then you're going to want to take a piece of chocolate, chew it in your mouth, but leave it on your tongue. Take a sip of beer to wash the chocolate away to get the combination of those flavours and see how they taste to you. Finally, for all of us geeks, let's take some notes. Take some notes of which beer and chocolate you put together. Did you like it? Did the combination go well? Is there any tweaks you would make? And let us know which was your favourite pairing. If you're interested in this and need some help, I've got a beer and chocolate pairing printables kit in my Etsy shop right now. It will help you create the perfect Valentine's or date night experience. And it's an instant download, so you can start planning right away. The link to my Etsy shop's in the description below, so head there now. And if you want to learn more about beer tasting reviews, check out the videos that are on your screen now.